Hi, I'm Mike Marino, and this is a brand new episode of Live from My Mother's Basement. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, or good evening, depending on when you're watching this podcast. Live from my mother's basement. I'm so happy to be here. We're taping in Los Angeles, California. And for the first time, I'm having this young man on my show because it's so hard to get touring comedians to get in the same city at the same time, much less the same room. This is Jonathan Kite. Thanks, man. Thank you for coming over.
Man. How are you, buddy? So good to see you, dude.
You know, I wanted to say this too, because we were just chatting before we started recording.
Yeah.
Although there might be some kind of an admiration, a jealousy amongst comedians, there's also the family. Because somehow, somewhere, if we hear that someone's not doing good, we get sad.
Yeah.
And if we don't get to see somebody who we like entertaining with, we kind of get sad. It's like a family member you don't get to see, although you're not family.
Yeah.
You're just acquaintances passing through. But for some reason or other, there's a chemistry, not with all of us, but some of us, that you admire when they go on stage. You're like, wow, would you look at that guy? Holy shit, why didn't I think of that? Look at him go. And then you like, hey, can I talk to you? Can I say hello to you? And they have the same admiration for you back. This is one of those situations, I believe.
Dude, you're too kind.
Is that cool?
I remember meeting you at the Laugh Factory because we were playing all the time up top.
Yes.
And I remember that you were back and forth, like we were talking about off mic. And you reminded me when I first met you, I'm like this is what I always thought of. Oh, sorry. It's like a great East Coast comic.
Right.
Like you had, but you were so successful in LA because I don't think that you let that edginess get in the way of distancing yourself from the audience. Like there's an edginess to you, and a likability to you. And I remember we would always do those late Friday and Saturday shows that were crazy. And I remember thinking like, it's great. You were always like so nice and great variety on the show. You have like such a different point of view than a lot of the guys out here because you obviously grew up out there. And I remember just always liking you immediately and just being like, this is a cool dude. I like learning from him and just hang with him.
So it's like I just said, there's whatever this camaraderie is, it's some kind of a chemistry that you admire what this guy's doing. Because I remember when I was watching you do impersonations, of course, my favorite impersonation, well, I'm going to help you get to do it. But I'm saying, the motherfucker just hit it out of the ballpark. Holy shit. I thought he was in the room just listening to your voice change.
Yeah, it was fun.
The voice would change so accurately that you sit there as another entertainer going, man, I'm really not that good.
You know what's crazy is originally you're like a straight comedian, like straight jokes, which I always admired. I mean, my favorite, the guys that I grew up loving, like Rodney Dangerfield, Jamie Foxx, Robin Williams, different kind of, there's different guys, I always admired the straight joke tellers, but I realized that that's not the kind of guy that I am in life. I think like I maybe say things that are good or bad, funny, not funny, but I think that there's something about, there's a performance, maybe because I'm like an emphatic person, like even the way I'm talking and sort of the way I pronounce my words, I gravitate towards that type of performer. And so I always admire guys like you who could just sit there and talk. Because like I was working last night and we were going to hang out, but I stayed in and I was writing. And I was writing a straight story, and I was like, I realized I had written all these other like voices in there, and I was like, I wonder if I could do this without it, because it felt like maybe they didn't fit necessarily in the material. So like, I looked at guys like you and I thought like that is a very, very difficult thing.
Isn't it amazing? And I actually started doing stand-up with impersonations.
Really?
Yeah. I never wanted to be a stand-up comic. I never set out to be a comic. I was an actor in New York City. I'm born and raised in New Jersey. New York City's right over the hill. You go through the tunnel and you're in the city.
Right.
So as a 14, 15-year-old blonde, blue-eyed boy, I was doing potato chip commercials, hamburger commercials, diapers, you name it. I had a great career doing TV commercials. I was making great money. I never thought I was going to tell a joke. I went to the American Academy. I went to Herbert Berghoff Studios. I wanted to be an actor. But you know, when you get to be in your 20s, let's say, and your face starts to change and you're leaving New York to come to Los Angeles for pilot season, back in the pilot season day where you had to have representation and you had to have a car and you had to have a survival job. I thought, okay, this is going to be it. You know, I was actually on a soap opera for a year. I never thought I was going to be a comedian.
Wow.
But people would say to me, you know, this all-American look with parents from Italy, maybe that's funny. And I started to get upset. I'm like, I don't want to be funny. I want to be De Niro.
Yeah.
So when I first got an audition for Mitzi Shore at the Comedy Store, it was kind of like, all right, I'll go because somebody knew somebody and said, you go. So I impersonated De Niro, Pacino, Rocky, and all of these
What
characters.
year is this?
Oh, man, 90, 91.
That's the thing, man. Like, when you think about back then, it's like now people go like everybody does De Niro or everybody does that stuff. But you think back then there was newness to it. People do it because it was interesting and fun and funny for everybody. And then it becomes this thing that now everybody wants to be a part of. But I mean, gosh, in 90, 91, that must have, I mean, blown people away.
You know who was really doing great stuff with that was a little bit Andrew Dice Clay.
Oh,
He
sure.
was doing it and he had them down. And so you start thinking, okay, well, maybe I could do what they're doing. So when I walked off the stage, Mitzi Shore said to me, she goes, no way. I don't know why you're doing that. And I says, well, that's what I thought would be right for the club. And she goes, I like your energy. Why don't you come back in a couple of months and do something different? So I went back in a couple of months and I actually did the same identical thing because I didn't know what to do. So when I got off stage, she goes to me, why are you doing that? And I go, you know what, lady? I really don't even want to be a comedian. I can't stand California. I can't get a good slice of pizza. I'm in traffic all the time and I'm losing my mind. I need to get the hell out of here. And she goes, that's who you are. You're a regular. I'm like, what?
Wow.
She goes, that's you.
That's
She goes,
great.
we love you so much, we want to hate you. Go do that. And I was like, okay. And that's when I
great.
stopped doing all of that and just started talking about my own life because you probably are this way too. I always wanted to be in a specific mob movie. I wanted to be a wise guy. But I ended up getting cop roles. So I
Sure.
made it a joke.
Sure.
And that's basically what got me into stand-up. So a lot of people think I cut my teeth as a comic in New York, New Jersey. I didn't. It was L.A. It was always L.A. I just stayed myself. Then after the Comedy Store at that time, the late 90s, started to fall down, I ended up getting managed by Jamie Masada at the Laugh Factory. So that's how I got over there.
Oh, that's
Actually, I got
amazing.
my audition at the Laugh Factory through other comedians who were pretty big names at the time. One was Bobby Lee, and then
Sure.
Ralphie May, rest in peace.
Sure.
They're the ones who got me my audition.
Oh,
And I
that's
remember I
awesome.
was in line, and people come to me going, dude, what are you doing in line? I'm like, eating fucking humble pie. I want to get in the club. I didn't say anything to the negative. I said, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. I got passed at the improv first. And then, weirdly enough, I don't even remember how I got passed. They must have seen me or I must have performed there. And then for Jamie Masada, I went over to meet him, and he literally put me on stage in a packed house on a Thursday night. And I remember thinking, and then afterwards, he's like, "You're passed here."
Wow.
So which was crazy, just because I was trying to make the rounds, because I'd always wanted to be a stand-up comic, but like you, I went to school to act. I'm an actor. That's how I pay my bills and have my whole life. And I got a TV show where we were guaranteed to get picked up, Two Broke Girls. And so in the summertime, I thought to myself, I really want to try stand-up because I wanted to give it the respect. And this was probably about 12 years ago. I wanted to give it its time, its due. I didn't want to just sort of just show up and be like, yeah, you know me from TV. Let's hear these stories. I didn't want to do that. I never wanted to do that. And so I never talk about the show for the most part on stage. And so I really don't have that many jokes about it. Like maybe every now and then, if I have an extra time and if I go like super long and then the show's like doing well, in the last like minute I'll be like, does anybody have any questions? And almost always they're about the show. And so maybe I'll do a joke about that or something. But I went there and I really worked my balls off, just thinking to myself, what can I do to respect the art form, but also the people who are already doing it. I didn't want people to think that I was coming in and taking their spots. And they had paid their dues, and so I wanted to do it as well. So that's how I got in, and I just showed up.
That's actually really good looking out, because these days you get all these guys doing influencing whatever bullshit on TikTok, and then they get up on stage and you're like, hey, now wait a minute, wait a minute, where'd you even get that joke?
I mean,
where'd you get that?
Yeah.
What made you say that?
Yeah.
Who are you watching?
And that's the thing is, you want. Also, I also thought with the impressions, at least it made me original. Because like you said, you hear people all the time where I go, I know that's not your joke. I know that's somebody else's joke.
Yeah. And
then you kind of go, if you put it out online, essentially, or in a special, then you can sort of lay claim to it. But a lot of times, it's sometimes you get beaten to the punch, and people online don't really give a shit where they come from.
No, they don't. No, I mean, we're all going to have takes on life.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to have their idea. But some of us have very specific ones.
Yeah, I mean that's
kind of like, now hold it.
Well, yeah, people want to buy you.
Yeah,
is what they're doing, and so I sort of was like, I was like just trying to write my own stuff, but I always admired. I'm trying to work on the personal stuff now, like 12 years in. I'm trying to do more of that in my act and sort of talk about my experiences, because I didn't do that for such a long time.
Well, let's go back here, because for some reason or other, I thought you were from Canada, right? No,
Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Well, I'm way off. I don't know why I thought Canada.
I do like Canada.
Canada's great. They got some unbelievable, talented comedians come out of Canada. Incredible. And Chicago.
Yeah.
Where in Chicago?
I was born in Evanston Hospital, and I grew up in Skokie, Illinois. My dad worked for Northwestern, and so my parents used to have a place in Lincoln Park, but I grew up in Skokie.
Okay, so if you were out in Chicago, is that where you went to school? And
I went to the University of Illinois, Champaign.
Right.
And then I moved out to LA. I mean, in 2003, like right after college.
So didn't you do the Chicago circuit?
Not at all.
See?
I didn't. Yeah, nothing. Yeah,
like me.
I know it.
The New York circuit? No, actually,
Yeah, I wanted to come out here because I knew with youth that would have been, that's a commodity that I mean, yes, you can get plastic surgery. Clearly, the both of us have had a lot, but it's like, the idea that that's a commodity, right? Like, I didn't want to be some guy. Like, in stage, it's easier, right? There's a 35-year-old woman playing Juliet, but if they do the movie, the girl's going to be 16,
right?
And so I thought, just come out here as soon as I possibly can, because I already have, like, this is the same face I've had for a long time. I got Dorian Gray, but always have a 48-year-old man. And so I was like, you're going to look like this, and this obviously is going to be the selling point. Go out as soon as you possibly can.
So basically, Los Angeles is really where you cut your teeth.
Yeah, 20 plus years. Yeah, and then I started stand-up 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I did a showcase for HBO when I was in at the Improv. My manager at the time, God rest his soul. He's not dead. Well, he is to me. But he was like, try to do stand up in this HBO. I had no material. You know how you were saying you came back with the same material? I was doing material like everybody else there. I don't know who else. I remembered at the time being like, wow, these people became pretty successful. And this was like years before I did Two Broke Girls. And I thought to myself, I'll go up there. I bombed so hard in front of a packed crowd at the on the main stage. And I remember thinking, like, I just didn't have it, but I got pushed into it. And so it's like the Dorothy syndrome from Wizard of Oz. You need to sort of come to that conclusion on your own. So when I came to the conclusion on my own that I wanted to do stand-up, I think that I was able to be, much more successful than I was, where I feel like I was being forced into it.
Right. I've been thinking a lot lately.
Yeah.
With my career that I need to just chill a little bit, because like what you were saying, I have a good reputation and I get respect from other people. So instead of attacking and making sure I get that job, go to that job, how come I didn't get that job? I'm kind of like, I'm cool with what I got.
Yeah.
I'm cool with what I got. You know what? On a Sunday, I'm shutting my phone off.
Oh, dude. Well, you never know. The thing is, when you hear stories about why things in acting, right? Like stand-up it's a different beast. I mean, they're related, but it's like distant cousins. And it's like, you never know with acting stuff. It could be a million. I was up for this job and I played pool pretty well, but I think it went to a guy. It was between me and the other guy. I think it went to a guy who just was an expert at pool playing.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, and by the way, that's cool. That's what I'm a pretty good pool player, But you think that that is enough where like they go, oh yeah, but you guys are probably maybe equally as talented, but can also claim that he's a semi-professional pool player. And so you never know. So that's why it's like it's out of our hands. We just do the best we can and give ourselves a break.
One of the reasons why I actually started stand-up and love stand-up now more than anything, because you're addicted. Once you can get to a certain level, earn a certain amount of money, once you get on stage and you feel that adrenaline, or whatever the hell that is, you're addicted and you're not going to stop. I know I can create my own career now. I'm in control. I don't have to wait for an audition. In fact, any job I've ever gotten as an actor in the past 10 years is because someone was watching me perform.
Dude, and also theaters. I mean, we talked about that off mic. Like that's, I think people, you know what's weird about social media, if I may? And I don't mean to turn this into like two old guys on a porch talking, but the idea that you can see something, it's how everybody's so critical about athletes, right? Where you're like, I would have hit that shot. I'm like, you wouldn't. You couldn't even do the exercise that took to be in that position that's now game 7 of the finals. And it's like with social media, because I think that stuff is so readily available, but you're selling theaters, man. Like there are now a lot of comics selling theaters. I don't mean to diminish. I mean a lot of great comics that have never been able to do it before but that is an incredibly hard and impressive thing to be able to do that. There are great comics out there right now who cannot sell theaters.
You know, you're right, because I have some comedian friends that I admire, and I look at them and I'm like, these guys are fucking unbelievable.
Thank you.
And then you see some shit on television. You're like, how did they get passed on? I mean, I got passed on too, but how the hell? And then sometimes I look at what some comedians are doing now, like arenas, and some guys can't even sell out 30 seats. So I wonder, am I doing the right thing? Because when I look, I say to myself, but I did sell out theaters.
Yeah.
I still do.
And you connect
and it's
with
not
people.
enough. Why ain't it enough? I want more.
Yeah. Of course you do. Well, you see it though. Whenever we look at a phone or like there's a thing, by the way, it's like you don't see clips. They're not pushing it in the algorithm of people bombing. They're pushing like people in Madison Square Garden, and then if it's like an age thing, when you see like people will just shit on people who are younger than them, being like they didn't deserve it, I deserved it. But it's about, like you said, making your own career and connecting with people, because that's what sells tickets. Being in that room, it's like I'm not from New Jersey, I'm not Italian, even though everyone thinks I am. Everyone thinks that when they ask where I'm from, usually they don't say Canada. They're like, "You from New York, right?" I'm like, New York-ish, Chicago. But it's like, but I relate to you and I see you and I see how you relate. We did a show together outside, remember, in Venice.
Yeah.
I saw you on the outside.
Was that during the pandemic?
Yeah. It was, that was
Ahmed's room.
Bro, that was a great show that night. And I mean, it was consistently great, but that night in particular, wasn't Jim Jeffries also on that show? Dude, it was like a killers. It was these people, like, they didn't even, because it wasn't advertised. It was just like, come do this show. And like the audience didn't know. And I was like, dude, this lineup is as good as anything in town before or after COVID. And you were connecting with that group of people there. And I remember you like explaining your experiences, because I was hearing you from the back. And I remember thinking, like, I don't think any of these people are from Jersey. I don't think any of them are Italian. Like, but you're like, this is how it is. You do this thing where you go, this is how it is for me. And you do this thing. Yeah. And people are like, they're looking at you and being like, I'm not you, but I get you. And that is a very important thing, because there's a lot of comics. I think that when I look at somebody who I go, oh, that person is good, but they don't, for me, for my money, they're not connecting. And I think that's my problem too. Maybe I'm talking to myself in this mirror right now. That it's like when something's not working, I'm not connect. Can you give me a second, Mike, and leave the frame so I can talk to me? No. So I'm saying, like, that's something that I need to work on. That I don't connect, or when a bit's not going well, as soon as I can connect to it, I'm like, oh, damn, that's working so much better.
Yeah.
Instead of just a funny idea, because a lot of people got funny ideas.
It's also the timing of, we spend hours crafting that metronome. A lot of people think, it's what you wrote. And like, no. A delivery and a performance can actually take a bad joke and make you kill with it.
Yeah.
Because there's something about the way you did it.
Yeah.
Even if it bombs, you still got that look of, well, you didn't get it, I did. it still will work.
And it might work for another crowd.
Yeah.
That's why it's so funny. You flip a coin, 100 nights in a row, it could crush 50% of the time and bomb 50% of the time.
When I was talking to my producer and I said, I want to get Jonathan Kite to come over and do the podcast, she said, okay, well, what are his credits? What does he do? And I says, well, when I was always watching him at the Laugh Factory, his impersonations were just so spot on. And he's also on Two Broke Girls. And so she did her research. She says, "Oh my God, is he like that? Because I don't think she saw you do stand up."
Yeah.
And I go, "No, and he's doing a character
Yeah.
that you see in the window of the cooking thing,
Yeah.
and that'll make a guy like me go, shit. I wish I could do characters." But I actually did do characters. I'm bringing them back now because I'm doing my new show, which is supposed to be me talking to me, talking to me, talking to me during the pandemic because you couldn't go out.
Yeah.
But those were characters I did a long time ago because at one time you were supposed to show you had range.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
if you show you got range, you could be offensive because I was always doing this girl,
Right.
which is the complete opposite of the tough guy.
Right.
And I would turn to like, "Oh my God," and everybody was like, "I can't believe he pulled it off." Now I do it and people go, "Ooh."
Well, that's the
Ooh, what?
I know. You're not, I mean, it's crazy. I think, though, sometimes people are looking to get offended, whereas I think maybe if it was a personal experience, like if you're doing an impression or a character of somebody that it connects within you or a part of you that maybe we're not used to seeing, there doesn't need to necessarily be an immediate pullback and sort of accept maybe, let's see where this goes. We don't need to get pre-offended before we see something.
Yeah. It's kind of strange. But when I would watch you perform, I would always sit there, and I do this with a lot of different entertainers. I go, "Man, if I was ever in a movie and I got to work with that guy,
Yeah.
his ability would make my ability get better."
Oh, that's a nice thing to say.
Isn't it?
It
Well,
is
I mean,
no, it is a nice
it's a
thing.
nice thought because you look at somebody and you go, "I bet you any money if I did a scene with that guy, I'd shine because he would make me better.
Yeah.
Because
Oh,
I'm going to try
thanks, man.
harder and I'm going to want to be like him." I don't know if I'm describing this right.
No, I understand. Let me tell you, when I've done scenes with better actors or people that I think are incredible, not better or worse than me. But I know that it raises my game, and it makes you because really it's always, we think of it as like a great performance from like Meryl Streep or Daniel Day-Lewis or whatever, but you really do need the other person in the room. It can't just be one-sided, and so they're making each other better.
Right.
And
Right.
and I think that goes overlooked a little too often.
I would just assume. I mean, I've done some movies where I was with celebrities, and in the beginning you get really, really nervous,
Yeah.
and then eventually you feel like going, "How now? Wait a minute. It's just a human being. I'm a human being. I
Right.
deserve to be here too.
Right.
I'm just as good, and I'm going to be happy with this chemistry and see if I can't take it over the top." Kind of like when we perform. Because when you're on stage, let's say at a 10 o'clock show on a Saturday night at the Laugh Factory in Hollywood, you better fucking bring
Oh, dude.
your A game because there's 3 other guys in the show and they're going to be killing it most of the time.
Yeah.
And you need to shine. I always wanted to.
Oh, dude, I did a show there maybe like a month ago, and it was packed, and I had new stuff, but I thought it was good. And it was just one of those things where I go, "Oh, I'll like ease into it," because I feel like if I come out the gate too hard and it crashed and burned, it's going to be a really hard turn to pull out of, And man, like the first like 2-3 minutes, I am just digging myself into a pile of shit.
Really?
But what's funny is what the good thing about that was when I was able to sort of move and move along in the set and sort of like have things sort of not necessarily get more comfortable, but it really helped to shape those jokes because I do think that people are used to seeing me do the impressions.
Right.
And so if I come out with hard jokes, it started going, okay, I need to add a character in there. It'll help soften that blow. Because because I think when people expect something from you, if you're going out there in a certain, like if Carrot Top was just doing like racism jokes, and you're like, where are the props? And, it's like you gotta, So, but it was interesting to see because I was like, I've retooled. That's literally what I was working on last night was all those bits, and I was like, that really helped me to see, where I am and where I'm not connected. Because that thing about characters for me, I always connect better. Weirdly enough, I always feel better, not better, but more comfortable playing someone else than I do myself. So I almost never get cast to play just like a guy like this. Never. And I've been doing this for 20 years. And so I always get like if they tell me one thing like this is this or this is this, it literally it's like climbing a mountain. It gives me a place to put my hand and to move up. Whereas and I audition, I just don't think I'm as successful. Maybe it's because I'm not as comfortable just being this guy. And so that's what I like about being stand-up, being other people.
Your alter ego. That's usually what I am, is an alter ego, or maybe I actually imitate my dad a lot. When I first started doing stand-up, and my father was the ultimate cigarette smoker, constantly 2 packs a day, he wouldn't talk. If you asked him a question, he wouldn't answer the question until he had the last puff. So if you said, Dad, what do you think about the weather? My father would go, I think it's going to be a nice day. So I started doing it
That's funny.
on stage, and that became, so Osama, how you doing?
Osama.
I want to talk to you about something. He said I was doing my dad. So a lot of people were like, do you smoke? I'm like, no, I'm imitating my father.
Funny.
And then the shtick of it became other people would do it.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't know my jokes, they just went, this is Mike Marino. And I'm like, well, okay, whatever it is.
But listen, it was memorable.
Yeah.
That's the thing, you need a hook. Like even, you think about people like Dave Chappelle. I think of him, he hits his leg with a microphone. There are things that we do as people that the audience connects with. So I think the fact that somebody could remember you for that, I mean, it's obviously there's other things, but that they can point to a specific thing like that is to your credit.
Sometimes jokes, do people actually come up to you and say, hey, come you didn't do that joke? I'm actually going to be guilty of it because they're going to make them do impersonations.
Somebody yelled that out at the Laugh Factory. They were like, this couple in the front row yelled out a joke in the middle of my joke. And it was like a Friday, Saturday. I mean, it was like the rafters were full. It was a fire hazard. And I was just like, and I'm going, what's up? And the guy just like, can you do this? And then I'm like, and I kind of look around like, it felt like a plant, you know what I mean, for social media, but it wasn't. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh, he wants to hear this. They're like, we drove so far, and they were afraid I wasn't going to do it, and I wasn't going to do it. So I was like, all right, I'll do it. And then I just did it. And then I went on with my own material.
There's a huge compliment when somebody says, could you please do a specific joke? Sometimes comedians, I don't know about you, but I would say, I want to do my new stuff. I want to do something different. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But if you ever went to watch your favorite singer, whoever it is,
you want
that one or two classic, and they don't do it, you're kind of like, damn, I went to see Bruce, you didn't play Born to Run.
I know it. But it's weird though. I think
that's a compliment though.
It is a compliment, the fact that but I do think maybe because I'm a comedian, I'm always wanting to know what the new shit is. Even if your shit's bombing, if I invest in somebody, and there's a bunch of comics like that because I don't really, I don't know that we just hang out so much at the clubs but if someone's like, oh, this, he's on stage, I'm like, oh yeah, I wonder what this guy's working on, because I like the way their mind works. So for me, not that I don't go back and watch old specials of people, I do, but I'm really fascinated with the process. Just because I think maybe being a part of it, like the workout. Now the games are cool, and to watch old games, like the highlight of Jordan winning the Bulls. But it's sort of like what's going on? What's the new? How are we ingesting and commenting on the world today?
By what goes on in the news.
Yeah, but I'm saying when I see you do new stuff, I'm always like, I like that.
Yeah, sometimes I could take old material and rehash it and add to it. And it kind of looks like a completely new bit, but it's basically just adding something to it.
It's a reboot.
Yeah, reboot.
You're rebooting your own bits.
I'm rebooting.
Here's my impression of, you should say, here's my impression of Mike Marino. And then you do
1993. Used to be a cigar.
Yes, now it's getting, now it's a vape. You update your shit,
Tell me about the iconic hit TV series, Two Broke Girls.
I was a
like, how did it happen? How'd you get on the show, and how long ago did that start?
I auditioned. I was doing another. You casting likes you, they bring you in for stuff. So I was auditioning for this one show for well, I originally started. Jamie Foxx was doing a new and living color that was going to be on Fox. It was called After Party, and they were like, it's going to be an urban sketch show. I think I can still say that word in 2024, and they said there's going to be a white guy like Jim Carrey. and they'd already cast the show. But my manager at the time sent in my characters and impressions tape or DVD to casting, and she had said that she showed it to her. You know, there's a rumor with soap operas that they always bring your tape home and show it to their partner in bed, and they think like, would you fuck that guy? Or would you fuck this girl? And if the answer is yes, so that's what your nickname should be now. The fuckable Mike Marino. And the
fuckables.
The fuckables. And then your porn is
the
called
Untouchables. Now it's the fuckables.
Jersey Mike's, and then you whip out your sandwich. And double meat. So with the sauce.
I'm gonna steal that.
It's yours, baby. And so they gave me they put it in. She showed her husband, and she said we already like have everybody called back, which is next week, but we got a DVD of this guy, and I think he's pretty good. What do you think? And the story goes that he goes, you got to have this guy at the callback. So I wound up going to the callback. I wound up being a part of the show, which was awesome, and it was like one of the best experiences. And then while they were trying to figure out what was going to go on with it, I was auditioning for other things, and I went in for another show from this casting director. And we had become pretty good friends because when you're with a casting director, you spend a lot of time with them because it takes forever to get these shows on the air and decisions to be made and whatnot. A lot of money at stake. So she sits down with me. She goes, "You're my last appointment of the day. Can you hang for a little bit?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course." She goes, "I'm doing this new show. You know Michael Patrick King, Sex and the City?" I'm like, "Dude, what a hit." He's doing a 4-camera sitcom for CBS. And I thought, damn. Like, that's incredible. She goes, it's going to be about 2 girls, sort of, I guess, in the vein of Laverne and Shirley. Going to take place in New York, in a diner in Brooklyn. And Whitney Cummings is going to be the other executive producer with Michael. She's like, can you do a Russian accent? I go, I did it, whatever. She goes, there's no part for you in the pilot. Because the main characters were, there was an Asian diner owner. There was an older black gentleman who ran the cash register, and the 2 girls and this Ukrainian chef that they wanted a guy who was in his 50s or 60s, and I was like 30 at the time or something. And I said, yeah, I'd love to. And I did the accent, and she goes, great. Just come back and meet Whitney and Michael. She goes, they'll like you. You won't get the show. There's no part. But you could meet them, and maybe you'll be on one of the episodes. You'll play like a Uber Eats guy or something. So I go in there, I meet them, and I went to a thrift store, and I bought an undershirt, and I smeared it with mustard, and I wore a hairnet, and I got these clubbing pants, and I wore baggy sweat socks and leather flip flops, like old one. They looked like they smelled, and I got in there, and I just did it, and I thought, there's no way I'm going to get this, so the pressure is off. I mean, it was literally just like, I was the last guy to go in that day, and I did it, and it was so fun. They were, and the thing was, there was a casting people, and there was Michael and Whitney, and I'd never met Whitney before, but if you don't know Whitney Cummings, she's the hardest working man in show business. And I'd seen her on the roast though, because I love the roasts.
Right.
And I was like, wow, this is amazing to meet you. What an honor. I just watched you on the roast last night. You killed it. Not even just a suck up, but just like I had literally just seen her. And maybe even to let her know, like, oh, I know who you are and I'm a fan, but that's it. And then I sort of was talking to her, but not to anybody else in the room. And I said, listen, I realize that there's a lot of you here, and I've only been talking to Whitney. It's because I haven't heard of the rest of you. I said, I'm Jonathan Kite. Let's start this audition. And of course it was laughing because Michael Patrick, he's so damn famous. And he said in that moment I had the job. He told me years later. He was like, that was the moment. He was like, I needed a guy like that to play that character. So then I didn't hear anything for like a month. Whitney had the Whitney pilot that she was doing, like there were other stuff going on. Then I came back in, and Whitney goes, you're going to meet everybody at Warner Brothers. Don't talk with an American accent. And then so I just did the Ukrainian. And then I wound up getting the next one, and it came down between me and 2 other guys who were significantly older than me. They looked very different than me. And so I thought, this has nothing to do with me. Genuinely, it's not that it's like I'm better than you or you're better than me. They just were going to see, and then I wound up getting the show.
Now, how long were you on Two Broke Girls?
The whole time. We did it for 6 years, syndication,
6 years.
everything.
Wow.
Yeah. It was crazy. 138 episodes.
And did your role grow?
Yeah. We added Jennifer Coolidge. I mean, the biggest Times Person of the Year last year. I mean,
Wow.
the biggest star
Wow.
in the world. And I wound up being her husband. And we got married and we had a baby.
Oh, I didn't even know that. So did they give you a spinoff?
So that's what they jokingly had said. Peter Roth over at Warner Brothers, he had said, he goes, these two need a spinoff. And I mean, they don't really do spinoffs anymore, even though I love them, because you got to think like Frasier was a spinoff of Cheers, and you know,
Yes.
King of Queens was a spinoff. You know, those are
Jeffersons?
I'm saying they're amazing. When they work, they're killer. So who knows what happens in the future? But we were just with everybody because Garrett Morris, who wound up playing Earl, the guy who was the cash who worked the cash register, he got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Did he really?
Dude, what a fucking
Wow.
legend, man. It was last Thursday.
Garrett Morris.
Dude, and that was the thing. What I would say is the reason the show worked so well, instant chemistry. We were like a basketball team put together. Everybody knew their role.
That's the magic.
No
of it.
egos, and that you know from the biz. It's like
Yeah.
who says the biz anymore? We're gonna edit that part out.
Yeah.
But
The
it was an
biz.
instant chemistry, and everybody and Kat Dennings was the main girl, who's a movie star, and Beth Bears, who's now on Cedric the Entertainer. They have a show on CBS together now, and they were awesome. And Kat was they were just very professional and very good at their job, and so they sort of were the captain of the ship.
Did the cast come to the Laugh Factory once in a while to catch your show?
You know, to be fair, I don't know that I ever invited them. But I would always go after tapings where they're like, "You're going out to do stand up right now?" I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "We're going to bed."
Yeah.
So they would go to bed. They're not that they're not night owls, but Jennifer definitely is, and but I mean, I think that they had to do so much they would go to bed pretty early. But we all supported each other very much.
You know, when I don't really remember what year it was, but I was on Party of Five. I went on the show, and I was going to be a recurring character in the last season.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is it. This is great. And my first scene was with the star, the oldest brother on the show. And I went down there and was taping the show and had all these serious lines. And all of a sudden, the guy peeks around the camera and he goes, "Can I ask you a question?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Are you a comedian?" And I'm like, "No. No, why would you think I'm a comedian?" He goes, "I've seen you do stand-up. You're a stand-up, aren't you?" I'm like, No, I'm an actor." Because I thought they're gonna not take me seriously.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of let it go like that. Then at the end of the first few months of taping, this one guy says to me, he goes, "You're a comic, aren't you?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, what's the big deal? We just want to go." I'm like, "Really?"
Oh,
I
dude,
thought
that's
there was
so
I was gonna
nice.
get. He goes, "No, comics make the greatest actors, and sometimes in the reverse."
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like, "Come on down to the Laugh Factory." I
that's
brought him to the Laugh Factory, and everybody's like, "We need to give him a bigger role."
dude. That's the thing that they see you in that environment. Because I've had people, casting people. The head of NBC was at the show one night at Laugh Factory. I'd never met her before, and it opened up so many more doors there because they could go, "Oh, we could see you do a variety of things," and they see you tell your truth.
Yes.
And that's what they want. Because obviously, like in auditions, there's so many times where you go, "Man, I got very lucky with Two Broke Girls." I think that my audition went very well. Even the last one I thought was still pretty like an 8 or a 9 out of 10. But so many things are going through your head, and that's never the environment that you're going to work. So there's people that are amazing at auditions, but they're not good at the thing.
Right.
So the fact that they could see you that comfortable on stage, keep an audience's attention for 20 minutes, I mean, that's a very difficult and impressive thing to do.
I was doing stand-up, I guess, at the Laugh Factory one night, and this director saw me. He goes, "We're doing a movie called Pizza with Bullets starring Talia Shire and Vinny Pastore from The Sopranos, who was playing Big Pussy at the time.
Great.
So we got something for you. We want you to come down." So I go down to casting, I guess 2 days later, and the casting director looks at me and she goes, "You're here on the wrong day. We're auditioning the cop roles tomorrow." And I says, "I met the director at the Laugh Factory. He told me to come down here and audition for Gino, one of the wise guys." And she goes, "Did you look at the faces of the guys in the waiting room?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "That is dangerous. You, my friend, look like the sun. So why don't you come back tomorrow and read for one of the cops?" And I'm like, fuck, all right. Just as I was walking out the door, the director comes in and goes, "What are you doing?" I says, "Well, she told me to come back tomorrow and read for one of the cops." She goes, "You're not reading for anybody. You're cast." No, he's not reading for anybody. We gave him the role." And I go, "I'm going to play Gino, the wise guy?" He goes, "No, you're playing the priest." And luckily, this small role who was always in all the scenes because he's the fifth guy out.
Yeah.
My face was always there. So every once in a while, they would yell cut, and then you'd hear the director go, "Hey, Mike, you want to add something to this?"
Dude.
And I'm like, "Yes, I would." And I was writing live.
That's the best. I mean, I love that. It's funny, we were watching a movie, my buddy and I, and we were listening to tags at the end, like they would finish a scene on a line. And he isn't an actor, and he goes, "Do you think that they improvised that?" And I go, "I did, but I think that they didn't have like they wanted it to be funny, but it was people that were like, guys like you should be able to add a line. But have you ever been on set when somebody's adding their own shit and you're like, bro?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Because everybody wants to have the last line, and sometimes the last line is just a look.
Dude.
Leave it alone.
Bro.
Let the other guy have it.
I know.
You could steal a scene by saying nothing.
That's exactly right. And everybody in this movie needed to have the last line that we were watching. And it was just like, bro, it was one of the longest movies. It should have been called The Last Line. It's
the never-ending last line.
It's one of the. It sucked, but I mean, the movie was entertaining, but like the end of scenes were just death.
No, I just always remember from acting school, if you don't have a line, let it go. And it's the director's choice. So at the end of a scene, if they yell cut and say, "Hey," that's when you put it in.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, you're going to step on somebody's toes.
Yeah.
Speaking of characters.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on the favorite character that you do, but Wedding Crashers.
Oh, Vince Vaughn.
Vince Vaughn. How many characters can you do? Or celebrity impersonations?
Maybe probably like 200 or something.
Really?
Well, sometimes you work on a bit. Because I was doing Seth Rogen for a long time, and I always admire him greatly. And I thought, in Canada they loved it, but he hadn't. Sometimes you would really love somebody, but maybe the public isn't aware of them because of the way that they haven't done a project where we think of as actors. We're like, you guys don't know who that guy is yet. But he hasn't done something that everybody is talking about. Like Paul Giamatti is getting his due now for The Holdovers. Paul Giamatti is one of my favorites. But there's people who are discovering him for the first time, which is nice. But also, the guy's been working pretty steady for 30 years.
Oh yeah.
And so, so sometimes I'll get asked to learn stuff for voice matching, and then I'll work on something, and then I'll just add it to the roster.
What is the name of the movie that Paul Giamatti was in? One of his first movies, maybe. And he's in it with one of our fellow stand-up comedians who, at that time, I didn't even know it was him. In that scene, they're in the car and they're actually talking. Oh, fuck.
Not Sideways?
Sideways.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Now,
Thomas Hayden Church.
And who was the other comedian? He always has the stupid hat on and long hair. He's on 30 Rock.
Oh, Judah Freelander.
Judah. What an unbelievable
character
scene that these guys were doing. I remember him sitting there. I don't remember the lines, but he's going like this. "I have to eat now. It's the only thing I had all day," or something like that. And I'm like, is that fucking Judah?
Wait, but that's not. Is that Sideways? No, it's I can't remember that one. That's a different movie.
It's an older movie.
Yeah.
It's from a while ago, and Judah was in it, and he had a shaved
no,
beard,
for sure. I was saying,
back.
I think
he's in the scene. Well, whichever it was, these guys were geniuses.
Oh, dude, it's like,
and then to watch him do stand up, you're like, is that him?
It's unbelievable fun, funny guy.
So, how can I get you to do a little impersonations for us? And I have an affection for that one because I don't think there's many people who could do him.
So I'll tell you how I learned him. And I auditioned for the sketch show, and like I said, with a pilot, you have a lot of time to do it, right? So I went in there, and they're like, "You do impressions, right?" This was when I first signed with a manager, and you always want to look good. You don't want to look like a liar or make them look bad.
Right.
So I go, "Yeah, I do some impressions." They're like, "Great, bring in." It was going to be a sketch show, maybe Frank Caliendo's sketch show, maybe it was another one, I can't remember. But I go in there and I do Christopher Walken, Wallace Shawn, Brad Garrett, Tim Gunn, and one other guy, a Branson, Missouri 5. You know what I mean? Like a Reno, Nevada impressionist. And they're like, "We love these, but who do you do that's modern?" And I was like, Nicolas Cage, Barack Obama, and Vince Vaughn. And I'm like, "I'll be able to work on those." And I look and sound enough like them in life. I'm like, I could do it. They go, "Great, the callback is Monday." And I thought, oh my God, my manager's going to think I'm a fraud. So I stayed home and I watched Fred Claus with Paul Giamatti. And I watched it probably 200 times. That opening scene there. And that's how I learned the Vince Vaughn when I came back on Monday. And I had it.
I can't remember exactly how your routine goes, but I have seen you do Succession. Do you call it Succession when you do 3 to 5 different
Yeah, I do like micro
impersonations,
impressions, like in a
talking
row.
to each other like there's a
I
situation?
don't. You know what's funny? I don't do that. I used to do Nicolas Cage and Mark Wahlberg in a movie about being out of breath. But I never did. I the Vince Vaughn I did forever. I did a variety of them. What's up, baby boy? I like the energy right now. I'm on live from my mother's basement with Mike Marino. I'm having a great time. I would have him. I would put him in different scenarios. Like I would say, here's my impression of Vince Vaughn doing the commercial for Chili's. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, and just try to get him out and stuff like that. Or I'd be like, give me a scenario, and I would just talk to the audience as it.
Yeah, that's great, man. That is so great. So he so sounds like just like him. Who else you feel like giving us?
Hi, Seth Rogen here. I probably will not remember being on this podcast because wow, I am really high right now. I can do Tom Hanks. Hi, how are you guys? Tom Hanks here, live from my mother's basement. I'm usually on Epstein's Island, but we're coming at you live from Michael Jackson's house.
I love it. Do a couple more with like my live from my mother's basement. I'm gonna take snippets.
Oh, sure. Hello, it's Chris Walken here, live from my mother's basement. A little bit of mold down here. It's crazy. Let me see who else can I'm trying to think. Oh, hey man, Jeff Bridges here, man. I'm coming at you live from my mother's basement, man. I'm doing some peyote. I'm talking to a turtle in the background. His name is Gary, and we're just we're just having a good time. We're on some acid, man, and I'm gonna go sleep on a cactus.
I love it, man. This is fucking great.
I'm trying to think of who. I'm trying to think of. Hello, Mike. Barack Obama here. Let me be clear. This is my favorite podcast that I've been on in a very long time, and I literally dropped Joe Biden off at the park. I let him run around so he gets tired. That's the way that he sleeps better at night.
So fucking great. Do you do Trump?
Oh yeah. So I've done Trump for like 15 years. I did it before he was running for president.
Oh.
But then everyone started to do him. And so and it's hard to do him here because people are like, let us know that you hate him right away, or like they don't I felt that. Maybe there's other impressions that haven't felt that way. Excuse me. Mike Marino, we're out here, we're shouting. I'm in a great rally live from my mother's basement. It's so great down here. A lot of great basements here. And I know because I own so many buildings. This is true, believe me. I own so many buildings with the greatest, the unbelievable basements with so much great tanning salons.
Oh, that is great, man. That is really, really great. Listen, we've been chatting down here in the studio, actually. We're not in my mother's basement. You should see the basement. It's my house in New Jersey.
Yeah, you were saying when we were originally, I wanted to do it.
Tell everybody where they can find you on social media.
Yeah.
You could talk a little bit about your tour. Of course, we don't know when this is going to air, but spread out the year if you got 6 months lined up, or at least your social media. And tell us what you're working on. Maybe you got a movie in the works or something yet to come out.
So you can find me at Instagram, Jonathan Kite, JonathanKite. On TikTok, I'm at the Jonathan Kite because there's a 12-year-old boy who also has my name who won't give it up, and the fucking name. And then I'm on. I sold a movie that we're filming in the end of the year, so depending on when this comes out. And then I'll be on tour. I mean, right now, for us, it's February, and I'm going to be in Zanies in Chicago. I mean, all my tour dates are up. I'll be in all over Texas. I'll be in Massachusetts. I'm in New Hampshire this summer. I'm all over the place. So just check, JonathanKiteComedy.com is my website. And I post there and Instagram the most, but I'm also on TikTok for everyone else.
It's really, really great, man. I can't thank you enough for coming over.
Thanks for
and having
me,
some fun with us. This is going to be, I think, one of the most insightful podcasts when it comes to stand-up. I think this is one of the first time I talked about the inside secrets and the behind the scenes of stand-up comedy from two real comedians, and this is all that we do. You know, this isn't a hobby.
No.
This is what we do.
Yeah.
And the adrenaline. You know what's really sad but a good thing? When you have a buddy that you admire and you play places like, let's say, just the Laugh Factory in Hollywood, you have these great nights and you feel really, really great. But you're not going to see him that much because he's a headliner. I'm a headliner. Guess where we are? Totally different places and totally different time zones. So you're never going to get to really perform with your friend because we're out on our own.
Yeah.
You ever go out on your own, of course, and then you got some opening acts and you feel like going, who put this here? Who thought that was a good idea? Did you hear what that person said? Do you guys know what I do?
I mean, brother, the amount of comment. That's why I sort of love the way that like Joe did the Mothership, because it was built with all of those. I think that it's going to change the way comedy clubs are made and theaters are made, because people are now, they weren't expecting filming when they were built in the 1800s.
Right.
A lot of these clubs in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, they didn't think that we would have cameras on our fucking phones.
Right.
And so I think now, like moving forward, but you're right, I did a room, I won't even mention where it was, Auschwitz. No, but I was like, dude, this isn't built for comedy, it's built for nothing. It's just like a patch of dirt that has 4 walls.
Yep.
Oh, it was brutal. And this was recently, it was in a major city, at a major club.
Sometimes those things make you strong, but sometimes those things make you think, you know what, I can't keep doing that. Okay, I got to go someplace else. But, kick-ass entertainer. I say entertainer. You know why I say entertainer? Because you do anything.
I appreciate that.
You play an instrument?
I sing.
Told you.
There you go.
He's an entertainer. Not just a stand-up comic. He's an entertainer. He's an actor. He does impersonations. And now we found out he can sing. All right, let's do another half hour. Jonathan, would
guys, let me know when we start recording.
I hope we're recording. All right, we got to get going. Thank you, everybody, for watching live from my mother's basement. My friend Jonathan Kite, he's a great entertainer. Remember, I want to thank my producer, Tatiana Bluchel, for always making sure we put on a great podcast, and we got really cool, great guests. Remember, everybody, let's make America Italian again. I'm still running for president in 2024. The motto is, you don't know nothing, you don't see nothing, and you don't say nothing. And how do I end every single one of my podcasts? By always saying the same thing with my guest. Don't take no shit from nobody. Ready? Don't take no shit from nobody. Hey, folks, I hope you're enjoying watching my podcast live from my mother's basement. We're having a lot of fun, and I'm going to have a lot of great guests on the show in the future. So if you like it, hit like. You could also leave a comment. You could subscribe to my YouTube channel and watch other funny videos. And you could also listen to my podcast on your favorite podcast app like Spotify and iTunes.